Hey everyone, so we're going to just go over in this video the basics of what I want you all to do for the 21-day plan. I've just realised I've actually cut the 21 day off top of it. It doesn't matter. So we're going to talk about nutrition, we're going to talk about water, we're going to talk a little bit about your hormones as well. But I wanted to try and keep this video nice and short and sweet because I don't want to throw too much information at you. I want to give you a very simple and easy to understand plan that you can definitely keep up for 21 days. Okay, so you can't keep this up for life, but you can do it for 21 days. This is kind of what I want you to kind of get your head around when we start off. Because, living like, a monk, should we say, isn't something that anybody really does, long term. We all like to go out at weekends and enjoy a few drinks and enjoy a bit of food. But if you can do this for 21 days, you're going to give your body a massive, massive head start on getting into the shape of your life. So there's 3 simple rules I want you to understand for this. There's no alcohol for 21 days. There's no simple sugars for 21 days, and there's no processed food for 21 days. Doesn't sound like rocket science, and if you're the type of person who literally can't go 3 weeks without having, a couple of beers or, having a Mars bar or anything like that, then you're going to really kind of struggle with a general long-term journey, okay? Because most people should be able to do this for 21 days, and it's not going to be easy. You're going to have sugar cravings. You might have a bit of a kind of a sugar detox and things like that going off in the body, but trust me, when you get around that, once you finish this, you're going to feel so much better, and then you're going to realize actually how bad all these things were making you feel internally on your, how it made you feel, when you wake up in the morning, and how it affects your sleep and how it affects your energy throughout the day. So I just want you to understand that. So let me just close down my Skype. So eating real foods is something that we are just a big advocate here down in the academy. It's not really rocket science what we do. But it is very simple what we do. It is extremely effective once we get you to understand why we want you to do this. So we ate a certain way for, 2 million years, right, of all of evolution, which took us literally from, monkeys to space travel. And then in the last kind of, 40, 50 years, it's all kind of gone downhill. The obesity's through the roof, cancer's through the roof, diabetes and heart disease, and everything's just completely taken over the planet. And why is this? Because our diet drastically changed from what it evolved on. We evolved on stuff that we were hunter-gatherers. We would pick things from trees, from the ground. We would have caught things from the sea. We would have hunted animals. We are designed to eat the most natural foods in its most natural form possible. And the body processes this very, very differently to kind of the ready-made, highly processed foods that the majority of people live on nowadays. So, again, some rules for your food now. So when you're eating whatever it is you're eating, you need to make sure that the food is in its most natural state and most unprocessed as possible. For example, I would rather you have, a cooked chicken, for example, rather than some chicken nuggets. I would rather you have a piece of salmon rather than some, Bernard Matthews salmon fingers, for example. Okay, when a food goes through a process, it loses most of its nutrients, its micronutrients, its vitamins and its minerals, and all the good stuff that your body needs. So just make sure that you are getting foods that your grandma would have ate. You're getting them from places where they haven't been made into a different type of food that it originally was, and cooking meals from scratch as well. This sounds like it's time consuming, but it isn't. My breakfast takes me a few minutes a day. The majority of the meals I take, I either let them cook in the oven, or I'll make something that will only take me maybe 10 minutes. So there's lots of ways to do this, very, very easily. So what type of foods I want you to eat? So we're all about having a balance of all the food groups, so carbohydrates, fats, and protein, in a 2-to-1 ratio. So you would have 2 parts carbohydrates, 2 parts protein to 1 part fat, because fat is twice as dense calorie-wise than the carbs and the protein. So really simple. Now, so this is basically what I want your plate to look like. Okay, so you'd have a good amount of carbohydrates, a good amount of protein, a good amount of fat. I always try and teach to try and start with the protein. So you start with your meats, your eggs, your fishes, the stuff that is the high protein, and pretty much those 3 are going to cover it. Because they got so much nutrients in them, they've got so many vitamins and minerals, so many amino acids that the body needs to grow and to flourish. Simple as that. A lot of people are so deficient in protein now, and when we do your body scan, we'll be able to tell you that, if you are deficient, obviously. So always start to base the meal around the protein, because people always do this in the wrong order. They base the meal around the carbohydrate first, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So base your meal around the protein. So on that meal, what can you have first? So is it breakfast? Eggs is very simple, because we tend to just eat eggs for breakfast anyway. So base the meal around the eggs. Base the meal around the fish for breakfast. Salmon is great for breakfast as well. You can base it around that. The fats. So again, healthy, good fats. The ones with the good. You can kind of see from the photos, the nuts, the eggs, the oils, the oily fish. We all know that these are great for us, avocados. And the body uses so much fat. The brain uses around 80% fat as its energy. The same, the heart uses high amounts of fat. And when people go on a low-fat diet, this is when you start having, heart issues and anyway, I won't go down that route, because that's another story altogether. But healthy fats on the plate, and you might find that the meal you have, you might find that the healthy fats are already in the protein. So let's say if you have a salmon and you've made, like, let's say, salmon salad, you've drizzled a bit of olive oil over them. That's pretty much enough fats, I would say, for the meal. You're getting quite a lot of good fats. So just make sure you don't overdo it with the fats. And again, if you've tracked all this with MyFitnessPal, it'll tell you literally the ratios in there as well. Carbohydrates. So I'm going to talk about carbohydrates in the next slide a little bit more, but the only carbohydrate we actually need to survive is fiber. Okay, all the other carbohydrates, there's so many different foods that come into a carbohydrate class, which again I'm going to talk about in the next slide, but I want you to try and base the carbohydrates around the fibrous carbohydrates. So basically the fruits and the vegetables being the best ones being the green vegetables. So colourful, fresh vegetables being on the plate. So this is basically how your plate would look like. So let's say you'd have a steak, you'd have some sort of fats with it, and then you'd have some huge amounts of carbohydrates as well. The leafy green vegetables, the nice colourful fresh peppers, onions, mushrooms, all these cool things. They're so low in calorie and high in nutrients, you can go crazy with them. You can eat so much before you get anywhere near close to kind of a calorie allowance. But let's just talk about carbohydrates a little bit more, because this is the most confusing thing in the fitness industry, I think, carbohydrates. Because you can process a piece of bread, a grain of rice, a bottle of Coke, a donut, and a piece of broccoli, all in the same category. They're all classed as a carbohydrate. Where really, I think if these had separate categories, people would be less confused. So complex carbohydrates, which are mostly processed, these are the grain-based carbohydrates. So the things like the breads, the pastas, the rices. Now, and also things like the subsurface vegetables, so things like potatoes and things like that. So these things, it's not that they're bad, it's just that a lot of them are processed, so there is a lot of crap in them, especially the breads and the pastas. And the rices and the potatoes, they are just very high complex carbohydrates. So some people, they base their meal all around, let's say, the rice, and then they'll have a little bit of, say, a chili or a curry on top. So the meal has suddenly become a 78% carbohydrate meal and a 20% fat and protein meal. So this is why I'm not saying, you still have, the rice and the potatoes and things, but make it part of your meal and understand that they are just used as a simple energy source. That's all they are used for, the complex carbohydrates. They are quite low in nutrients, especially the processed ones. So I'm talking more about the breads and the pastas. So I would definitely try and avoid these, and you'll tend, probably 99% out of 100 times, people would feel 10 times better digestively when they come off, the processed carbohydrates, the big starchy ones. So I would prefer, for me, if it was eating, I would add rice. Is something I can tolerate quite well, and most people can, and it's more unprocessed than the breads and things. But I would still have some fibrous carbohydrates with my meal as well. I think the fibrous ones are the most important. So number 2, simple carbohydrates. Again, these are just basically sugar carbohydrates. So the junk foods, the donuts, the sweets, the fizzy drinks. These are still classed as a carbohydrate. It's crazy, but they are. And again, these are just an energy source. They are just sugar. So your body will process all of these exactly the same as what you would do eating sugar cubes. So again, I would avoid these at all costs. These aren't on the program anyway, so you want to avoid all these simple kind of sugary things at all costs. And then coming to the third one, the most important, like I mentioned before, the fibrous carbohydrates. So these are the fruits and the vegetables. Starting with you got to think about the most colourful, the most green coloured ones are the best for you. They normally have the most nutrients dense. Give or take a few You know what I mean? Give or take a few of the ones like peppers are very good, onions are very good, and things like that. But mostly, you know, the colourful ones are the ones you want to go for. I'm a big fan of berries as well, so raspberries and blueberries. They're very, very low calorie and very high nutrients. So I tend to have, you know, a punnet of those with my breakfast and things like that, just to add the extra kind of good fibrous carbohydrates in there as well. So just come back to the side that we had above. So just make sure again that you've got your proteins now, base the meal around the protein. Make sure there's fats added to the meal, so you can either add the fats or make sure there's enough fats in the meat or the fish or the eggs that you're having, because obviously eggs have got very good amounts of fat in as well. And then add the carbohydrates on top of that, but make sure you're not going over the ratio. Start off with the ones that are fibrous, and if you feel like you need to just bulk out the meal a little bit, then, you know, add in a little bit of rice isn't the end of the world. Just make sure it's staying within those ratios. So 3 to 4 balanced meals a day is all you really need to do. It's very, very simple. The thing is with snacking and eating throughout the day, people tend to just eat all day. I would rather have a good balanced breakfast, leave it 4 to 6 hours, have a good balanced lunch, leave it 4 to 6 hours, have a good balanced, you know, meal, and then another one. There's nothing wrong with 4 meals a day if you spread it out as well. If you're awake for 18, 20 hours a day, you know, that's actually probably a good thing for you. So 3 to 4 balanced meals a day. And again, I would rather do that rather than snacking constantly throughout the day. And if you found that you're hungry, that's not a bad thing. If you're hungry, your body's normally using, you know, the fat stores as energy, which you're going to talk about in a second as well. And being hungry isn't a bad thing. Just make sure you've ate enough in your meals. So let's say, for example, you can have 2,000 calories a day. Okay, so you want around, you know, just under 700 per meal. That is actually quite a lot in one meal if you're cooking it from natural sources and having this. You know, you might find that if you actually check the amount of calories you had in that meal, you might be way under it. That's probably why you feel really hungry an hour later. So just make sure you're having enough in the meals as well. So just, you know, figure out your what you want you to have calories per day, which will tell you after your body scan. Split it up into 3 or 4, and then just aim for that. It's not difficult when you think about it. It's like, oh yeah, of course. It's really, really simple to understand. Water. Water is extremely important. I mean, you hear people talk about it all the time, you know, drinking water. Doctors always going about drinking water, but it's actually the number one thing to lose fat. I would say if you're dehydrated, your body's going to hold on to your fat stores like there's no tomorrow, because it thinks it's in a time of famine. It thinks you know, it can't get access to water, it can't get access to food, so it's going to hold on to your body fat, you know, for dear life. That's its safety belt, you know, that's its life jacket. So if you're fully hydrated, one, you feel so much better as well. You know, 2, you're going to lose a lot more body fat. And your body's generally just going to run a lot better internally. All the organs and everything are just going to run a lot better. So just make sure that you're having around 1 litre per 20 kilos of body weight a day. And the most common thing is, oh my God, I'm always going to the toilet. Yes, you are, but at least you're hydrated. I'd rather go to the toilet a few more times a day than sit there, you know, not losing body fat because you're dehydrated. And our body scanner will tell you if you're dehydrated or not as well. So other liquids, again, like teas and stuff, are going to add towards this. Caffeine is... Some people can tolerate caffeine, some people can't. So just for this 21 days, try, if you're going to have coffee or any caffeine drink, just try and only have 2 and have them kind of before kind of the 4 o'clock. You don't want to be, you know, buzzing your head off before, you know, when you're trying to get to sleep at night and things like that. I go, you know, coffee is one of those where, you know, there's pros and cons to it. There's good stuff in it, and then some people it sends them over the edge with a bit high cortisol and a bit shaky. You know, but green teas, fruit teas, you're never going to go wrong with them. You're just literally adding water with a bit of flavouring, so you're never going to go a million miles away. But yeah, if you're going to have the caffeine stuff, just make sure there's only 2 a day. And other liquids as well, like try and just use your common sense with it. You know, I don't want you to have any chemicals in any of the liquids that you're having. So, you know, if you're going to have a Diet Coke, don't have a Diet Coke, have a fizzy water. You know, once you kind of get your taste buds adapted away from all these sweeteners and all these chemicals, you know, it's a fizzy water taste to me now like Diet Coke used to when I was younger. So it just takes a while for your, you know, taste buds to adapt. And just remember, like, what you've tried before, because, like I say, this 21 days is a hardcore 21 days. Yeah, it's not easy. You're gonna be doing stuff that you've probably never done before. But this isn't something that you're going to keep up for life, and it isn't, when you think about some of the things that people try, a kind of a fad. If you know what I mean. All you're doing now is really eating how we're designed to eat and just cutting out all the crap from your diet. That's all you're really doing for 21 days. And this is the most simplest and the best way to get results. You know, so a lot of people try meal replacement shakes. You know, we have never ever in our evolution designed to eat meal replacement shakes. It's just a complete and utter con and just a fad to get, you know, people to buy into whatever it is that they're selling. Dieting with massive calorie restriction, again, this just puts your body into a state where it thinks there's no food, I'm going to hold on to the fat, and when I do eat again, I'm going to store it all again. I'm going to store even more because I think I'm going to go through that fasting time again. You know, so the people who yo-yo diet, they tend to put 8% more fat on after they've started eating how they used to before, which was normally way too much crap anyway, because that's why they were overweight in the first place. So, you know, don't restrict your calories too much. If you go way too under, you're actually going to do yourself more harm than good. Eating, you know, low-fat foods or foods that explain that they think they're healthy. Now, this is something that I'm not an advocate. If you're anything that you're eating says on it, eat me because I'm healthy, it's normally not healthy for you. You got to think about it. When you ever see packages on fruit and vegetables saying what's in them, or you know, organic steaks, or on, you know, salmon fillets, you never see things slapped all over them saying low in fat, this, that, the other, high in protein, blah, blah, blah. No, they just have very simple, plain labeling. Okay, so just make sure that you're eating foods that don't say the good on them, basically. That's a really good rule to think about. Exercising, trying to kill yourself with exercise. We always say when you're starting off exercising, 20-30% effort for the first few sessions, then you just build it up slowly, just get a little bit of a sweat on, a little bit of a, you know, out of breath, you know, very, very slightly. You're actually going to get better results building it up over the next few weeks than just going full blast at it on day one, aching for a week, and not being able to use your body properly, and then, you know, just feel a bit disheartened by it because you're so achy. You are going to ache after the first session. Yes, it's bound to happen, but just make sure you're taking it, you know, nice and easy. We're not trying to beat you to death. We're trying to teach you how to exercise properly and trying to adapt your body to get to the point where it is very, very effective at burning fat. And also, you know, this bottom right picture, people trying things on their own. How many times have you tried things on your own and never got anywhere? You know, the amount of people who have, you know, trained in over the years and years and years, who exercise on their own for X amount of years and actually went backwards. I remember my very first client, when I first did personal training, she was a member of the gym for 8 years, and she actually gained, I think it was 4 stone in 8 years she gained whilst being a member at the gym. So it cost her something like £4,000 in membership, and actually gained 4 stone, which is madness when you think about it. You know, she obviously did very well when I started training. She lost a huge amount of weight, but it's one of those where just get into the mindset that, you know, doing things on your own isn't a good thing. You know, if I wanted to go and achieve something that was out of my parameters, I would go and see someone who would get me there quicker. If I wanted to go somebody become a karate expert, I would go to the best karate coach and I would get them to coach me. I wouldn't try and, you know, look on YouTube of how to do a karate kick and then try and master it myself. Okay, I'm just going to quickly touch on a couple of hormones before we end the video. I'm trying to keep it under 20 minutes. So cortisol is a big one. Cortisol is basically, you know, the stress hormone, the fight or flight hormone we have in our body. And nowadays, in the modern way we live, this is elevated all the time. So I want you to try and start addressing some of these with basically a very simple stress control. So you got to think poor nutrition, psychological stress, high blood sugars, chronic inflammation, toxicity. All these things raise cortisol. Also coffee as well. Caffeine does raise your cortisol for certain people. So it depends. If you feel a bit shaky after caffeine, I'll probably knock it on the head for a few weeks and see how you feel after it. So again, this leads to kind of high blood pressure, insomnia, hypothyroidism, poor digestion, decreased immune function, constipation. Imagine trying to lose fat whilst you've got all those things. Imagine trying to get in shape where you've got all those things. So what I want you to try and address is what is the kind of the top 1 to 2 things that you think stresses you out most in your life, or causes you, you know, some of these issues. And again, the nutrition is going to start being addressed. Your exercising helps reduce cortisol as well. It actually raises it slightly during the exercise, but after it does drop a lot. And, you know, if you had high blood sugars and things like that, this is going to help with diet as well. So diet, you know, in the way you eat, has a massive effect on cortisol, but also I want you to start addressing things that really stress you out. Maybe something to do with work, it may be something to do with home life, maybe something to do with commute onto work. Is there any way that you can start to lower that stress levels, lower them anxiety levels, and work on it? There are lots of different methods that you can do. I don't want to go into it in this video. I want to keep it shorter than this subject. This is another video alone, to be honest. But again, talk to the coaches if you're unsure on this one. And insulin. This is what I'm talking about, just having a few meals a day with a gap in between. Your body only can release fat once insulin's below a certain level. And another hormone called glucagon will be raised, which is basically the key to your fat cells. And it'll say to the fat cells, right, come on, insulin's out the way. I'm here now. Come into the bloodstream. Let's use you as energy. Okay, let's send you to the liver and get you processed. So having them few hours in between your meals is the best time. And when you sleep, you're pretty much running off fat stores in your sleep. Like when you sleep, you burn huge amounts of fat. Like you're pretty much just burning fat. So especially if, you know, the more muscle mass you've got as well, the higher your metabolism is, the more you burn. So make sure you're leaving those few hours in between your meals. You know, have the breakfast and leave it, 4 or 5 hours, then have your lunch, then leave it 4 or 5 hours, have your dinner. So just make sure you're not overdoing it with eating all day. I want your insulin to be up, obviously, to process the food, and then should be down and nice and low, and then you should feel more energetic this way. A lot of people, their insulin is raised throughout the day, like it's never below level. So they really struggle to, to lose fat. And the thing is, the carbohydrate, the higher processed carbohydrates and the highest sugar carbohydrates raise your insulin more than anything else. So you got to think, if you were having a glass of orange juice for breakfast with 2 slices of toast, that is just carbohydrates, very simple carbohydrates. So your insulin will be through the roof. You get to work, you have a couple of biscuits with a brew with some sugar in. Again, insulin's through the roof. Your lunch comes, you have some more bread, you have some, maybe have a Mars bar, you maybe have a pack of crisps. Your insulin's through the roof. So your insulin is up all day, and you can never ever get to the point where you can really use fat as energy, which is madness when you think about it, but this is how people live. So make sure you're having that healthy, balanced meal, you leave it 4 to 5 hours, you're having that healthy, balanced meal, leave it 4 to 5 hours, and that's it. There's no ifs, no buts, no nothing. There's no excuses. There's no I just like snacking. There's no, I'm addicted to flapjacks, whatever. Just, follow the plan. It's very, very simple, very easy to understand. And again, most of all, if you've got any questions, just ask. Comment below this video, ask the coaches, messages, emails, whatever it is that you want to do, and just ask us, This is what we're here for, to help you out. But I wanted to keep this video short and sweet because obviously on the main academy program we teach you a lot more. We literally teach you drip fed videos and we teach you a lot more in depth about all of this. But I wanted to get you off to the best start possible where you can understand, okay, now I know I need to eat 3 to 4 balanced meals a day. I know exactly how much water I need to drink. I know what I'm not meant to have. I'm not meant to have alcohol, sugars, or processed food. I know that I can have a couple of glasses of coffee a day if I want to. I know I can drink unlimited kind of green teas and things like that. And that's it. So hopefully you'll be watching this video now going, okay, yeah, got it. Pretty simple. And I'll crack on with that as well. So yeah, hopefully that makes it all clear for you. If you've got any questions, then feel free to ask.